Okay, so today I want to talk about a concept I call being pre-offended. Being pre-offended is the idea that I'm ready, I'm waiting, I'm nigh unto hoping that I'll be offended by something. Probably heard the phrase, feelings are not facts. Well, in one way of thinking, I agree with that, but in another way, I disagree with it, meaning feelings absolutely are facts in that they're absolutely being felt. If I am feeling angry, I actually am feeling angry. If I'm feeling hurt, I'm most definitely feeling hurt. If I'm embarrassed, I am. I'm experiencing the feelings inside of my mind body of being embarrassed, or whatever the emotion is. The difficulty that we sometimes run into as people is we misidentify where the source of those emotions comes from. And the way we misidentify it is we make this observation of the thing that most recently happened right before we experienced an emotion, and then say to ourselves and others, and it can be observed by third parties watching, that that's the thing, whatever it is that happened, is the reason why I am experiencing my emotions. Anger, embarrassment, hurt, shame, whatever it is. So, to be pre-offended is the set of events or the style of behavior or a person demonstrating their set of beliefs through their behavior, whatever it is that I already find to be upsetting or hurtful. So let's say as a child, I was going shopping with my mother, and I was just sort of randomly getting stuff out of the grocery aisles and the different parts of the grocery store, just grabbing stuff, cereal, and putting it in the cart, grabbing a can of soup, putting it in the cart, soap that we don't use as a family, and putting it in the cart. And then at some point, my mother or father, it doesn't really matter, gets really upset with me that I'm grabbing random things and putting them in the cart. And as a child, now I feel bad that I did something that's upsetting to my mother or father. And then that feeling of I did something wrong, this is something that I shouldn't have done. There's like this shame that starts to build. And every time my mother or my father gets mad at me about something, there's shame that begins to build about that particular thing. And so now, as a young person, I've related shame with grabbing random stuff out of the grocery aisles and deciding to buy it, or deciding that it is to be bought. I'm associating that with shame now, and that it's like a wrong act. Now, let's say that years and years and years later, I get married, we have a couple kids, and the scenario just hasn't quite come up yet. They're pretty young, and we're in a grocery store, and here I am, with my wife, and got these two little kids, and our 2-year-old goes and grabs some cereal and throws it in the cart. And while they're doing it, they get in the way of some adult that's also shopping. And my wife just kind of lets that happen. Cereal gets thrown in and just kind of lets it happen. She just did something that was offensive to me. She allowed our child to randomly grab something and throw it in the shopping cart. Oh man, I'm feeling a little bit I mean, I'm a little bit embarrassed that my kid's just running around the grocery store. I got to wrangle that kid. And maybe I'm starting to feel my temperature go up a little bit. Maybe I'm almost sweating a little bit. I'm a little bit upset with my wife that she's just allows this insane behavior to take place. Any adult that's looking at my child running around, grabbing stuff and putting it in the cart, I'm wondering what they think about me as a father that lets this sort of stuff happen in his household. And I know it's not right to be super mad at a 2-year-old, but I'm really embarrassed by the 2-year-old, and I got to figure out how to address this situation. So I sit my wife down, and after we've gone shopping, and I explain things, and it's just like really difficult today when we were shopping, and explain the scenario. And so I was embarrassed. I felt shame. I was annoyed that she just lets our children do that kind of thing. And I was, a little perturbed at my kid. Whew. Okay. So did I experience emotion? Absolutely. Were those feelings facts? Absolutely. Was the source of those feelings the other adults in the store, my wife, and my kid, and the cereal brand? No. But as long as I'm experiencing those emotions and do not want to take responsibility for those emotions, I will blame those emotions on the cereal brand, other adults in the store, my wife, and my kid. I won't even be able to help it. Why? Because I'm experiencing the emotions. I can't just turn that off. It's a thing that's happening. That situation really did embarrass me. So from a young age, I was pre-offended. It's like I wasn't on purpose, getting out of the car, walking into the grocery store, and then in my mind going, okay, if events 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 happen, I will be deeply shamed, hurt, annoyed, and or embarrassed. So let's wait to see if they happen. That's usually not how it works. I'm just walking around in life and holding certain beliefs. Now, the beliefs I'm holding, in the case that I just mentioned, comes from how I was treated as a child. So that's a scenario we could summarize as saying tradition. Okay, it's sort of a nefarious tradition. Nobody wrote down, family traditions that we should keep, and one of them is, shame your children if they get random stuff in the grocery store. So it's not a tradition that families uphold, like we all eat a particular kind of stuffing on Thanksgiving. No, but it is a family tradition based on the nuanced emotional health difficulties of parents and grandparents and, the generations before us. And now I've got a few of those. And so because of tradition, I'm annoyed at my child or embarrassed by the other adults in the grocery store. It was something that I got almost indoctrinated into, let's say, because it's something that went on with me as I was a kid. Now, there's other ways that we can become pre-offended. Another way a very powerful way that we can become pre-offended is having somewhere along in our life, having a sense, a calling, if you will, to do something, and we don't do it. I have a sense to go visit my grandmother. Don't do it. Lives in the same town. I have a sense to go visit her. I don't do it. Well, a human mechanism in me will call forth now behavior. And sometimes the behavior is just in my own head. And It is something that is so automatic and so quick to humans that we hardly see it happening. But what happens immediately to me is and maybe it comes with words, maybe it's something that can be described with words, or maybe it's just sort of this, just a mass or a ball that now can have words assigned to it. So here I'm going to describe the mass, the ball. If I have a feeling to call my grandmother and I don't do it, in this ball can be described as, well, I didn't have time. I didn't have time to do it. And so in the ball, in the mix, there's kind of this feeling, this concept of, I don't have time for particular things because I'm such a busy, engaged person in certain aspects of life, in certain, important aspects of life. It was maybe had to do with my job. Whoa, okay, now that's part of the mix in the ball as well. I'm the sort of person who has an important job. Well, that's sort of now in the mix as well. I'm the sort of person who has very good use of my time. So I'm a very efficient person. Now that's in the ball as well. Now I'm carrying these images that I hold of myself that justify how I see and treat other people. In this case, my grandmother. And as time goes by, I reinforce those. And so they're images that I carry of myself that justify how I see and treat others. A shorter way of saying that is they're images of myself that justify how I treat others. A shorter way of saying it is they're images I carry of myself that justify my behavior. A shorter way of saying it is they're self-justifying images, self-justifying self-images, self-justifying images. And I have a whole ball full of them over time. If I have had feelings to do something and didn't do it, or if I've had feelings not to do something and do it anyway, well, then I will seek to justify that too. I probably shouldn't steal those things. I'm going to steal them anyway. Well, I deserve them as much as anybody else might deserve them. So I'm the sort of person who deserves things, for example. Or I'm just as good as anybody else. Why can't I have that particular thing? Now, there's bigger things that can be justified. Then the list is long. But all of us have a particular mix, and it's all mixed in this ball that we could call our self-justifying personality. And if I'm the sort of person who thinks I'm efficient and I go to work and somebody's being inefficient, oh my gosh, what an idiot. That's a version of me being offended. I'm offended at how much of an idiot that inefficient person is. Now, does it mean you can't go ahead and address inefficiencies? Absolutely, but I don't have to be offended by it. I don't have to have an emotion of exasperation. Another way that I can walk around pre-offended is also powerful and also real, but it's also something that I can address. And sometimes it could be pretty difficult. And that's if I have experienced trauma in my life. So if I'm driving along and I don't have my seatbelt on and, I don't know, I get into a car accident. And the car accident had to do with, let's say, somebody who was inebriated or otherwise distracted. Now I've experienced a trauma. For the rest of my life, until I address how my neurology and how my psyche has come to see that trauma in unhealthy ways, until I address that, I now have in my mix a whole other set of ways to be offended. Anytime anybody doesn't have their seatbelt on, and I witness it, I could just be so frustrated with that person. I want to slap them. Why don't you have your seatbelt on, for example? And it doesn't mean that I shouldn't care about people's lives and that they should have their seatbelt on. And I could remind people, oh, hey, remember your seatbelt. Get your seatbelt on. Can't go until you have your seatbelt on, as opposed to, can't go until you have your seatbelt on. How dare you even think that you shouldn't have your seatbelt on? What is you moron? Okay, so there's just a difference between having this offended disposition. Now, regardless of what side of the political arena you are on, people can be deeply unhinged offended at what other people are saying or thinking or how they're behaving. And then we can now assume or claim that the reason why we are offended about it is because of the moron that other person is and all the other morons that believe what they believe or want to vote for them or whatever. And anybody who agrees with that person, I am now going to unfriend them, unlike them, shun them, consider them a deeply flawed human that probably should die. That's the level that some of these offenses, meaning these being offendednesses, get to. And it's okay to contemplate where my offendedness may have come from, as opposed to point, that is an offensive thing, that is an offensive thing, that is an offensive thing, and that is an offensive thing. And since they are all offensive things, they make me feel certain ways. And it's just fundamentally not true. It actually can't be true. If it were true, then a person could go and do particular things and just across the board offend everybody equally because they have the power to offend. Well, obviously that doesn't happen. People can say certain things and offend half the crowd and not offend the other half of the crowd. So we are the mechanism that both over time has, as part of our journey, brought about the manner in which we are offended in life. Now, why does it matter what we're offended about? Well, this is why, because whatever offends us, or when we are offended, and we're feeling these emotions of annoyance, or anger, or hurt, or shame, or whatever we're blaming another person for making us feel, we are 100% taking away from our own selves any responsibility for what we do while encumbered by that particular emotion. Sorry, man, I was just really out of control. I just was angered, and that's why I told your friend to go screw themselves. Sorry about that. Well, that's really nice that we did two things. We were apologizing, but then we also blamed it on our anger. We can't take responsibility for something we blame somebody else as the originator of. If somebody made me mad, that's them. That's on them. If I subscribe to that paradigm that somebody can make me mad. If somebody can hurt my feelings and my feelings are hurt, it's on them because they hurt my feelings. If somebody can make me feel really, really good because they told me exactly what I wanted to hear, well, to the degree that if they were to stop doing that and now I'm upset or suspicious, that's on them too. Because they made me feel comfortable and good in the first place. So there's a lot of ways the human being can be offended. And the paradigm of that we're offended because we walked around pre-offended, and then all that had to happen was something to match up with our pre-offense. then we can start to address ourselves, and less and less and less and less and less, fewer things become offensive to us. Less traumatized in life, less hurt in life, less angered in life, less less easy to be made in a codependent way, made to feel good from maybe illegitimate sources, let's say. We have an ability to discern, to have perceptions that might be accurate to the degree that we're not offendable by everything or by a certain type of thing. So, just think about this as a general concept. If I subscribe to the idea that things that offend me are because of my pre-offense, my pre-offendedness in the first place, coming into a situation, now I have the power to take responsibility for my emotions and my behavior while I have any kind of emotion, as opposed to handing my behavioral life over to everybody because I'm blaming them for my emotions because they offended me about something. Part of the journey of becoming a more healthy, self-actualized human being is to understand that our health and our self-actualization comes from us, and not because of the qualities or the deficiencies of other people. And then that's us just walking around, not walking around pre-offended. Makes for a happier way of going about things, that's for sure. So, think about the ways in which you might be pre-offended. And the sort of scenarios that if they happened, or the sort of scenarios that when they did happen, just lit you up or shut you down. And relieve yourself of the light up and the shutdown by not being pre-offended.